Hey team, I'm Josh. In my last video I compared the original Sonos Beam with the Bose Soundbar 300 and JBL 5.0, which offered a great insight into the small smart soundbar market. In this video we'll be looking at the newly released Sonos Beam Gen 2 and compare it to the old version as well as its bigger brother, the Sonos ARC. Let's get to it. I'm guessing for most of you this isn't the first video you've seen on this new soundbar, so I'll quickly run you through the physical upgrades before getting into the sound comparisons. The new mesh grille on the front is a great aesthetic change, as the old one had a cloth cover which would collect dust and hairs from pets. You can't really tell a difference when looking from afar, as the shape is identical, but up close you'll notice a slight difference in colour and texture. On the rear of the soundbar, the one thing that's changed is the ARC port has been upgraded to eARC, so it can decipher higher end audio formats. If you have your current beam mounted on the wall, then this will fit perfectly in its place, as Sonos hasn't changed the mounting points. Sonos has also added NFC to this bar, which makes it even easier to install. All you have to do now is tap your phone on the top panel when configuring the soundbar, which adds a nice touch. There are also new audio formats available due to the upgraded processor. Gen 1 could do 2.0 stereo, Dolby Digital, and Dolby Digital 5.1. Gen 2 adds Dolby Digital Plus and Dolby Atmos. Speaking of Atmos, I've never trusted virtual surround sound or virtual Dolby Atmos, and I think it's sad that Dolby have allowed the technology to be plastered on speakers that don't do it justice. There's two sides to it. Yes, the Beam can interpret Atmos as an audio format and can play the sounds it receives, but when you think of Atmos, it conjures up the idea of a best-in-class listening experience, which nowadays is being downplayed and thrown into all sorts of speakers that don't give you the spatial sound you're after. This stands mostly true for the Beam Gen 2 when comparing it against the Gen 1. I heard a little improvement in 3D sound, but it wasn't anywhere close to what I was hoping for. For soundbars that can't interpret Atmos signals, they tend to play the height sounds at the same level as everything else, which takes away from what the director intended. Since the Beam can decode Atmos, it will change the volume of those sounds so it mimics Atmos speakers. I gave it a good test using Dolby's official demo video and 6 Underground. When there was rain falling, it sounded like it was coming from higher up, and the surround sound did have somewhat of an effect. It's still nothing close to having actual surround sound speakers or upward firing drivers, but it's better than nothing. I think of this Atmos implementation as a nice addition, but wouldn't be the sole reason to buy this one if you already have the first gen. Another thing to note is that DTS support is meant to be coming by the end of 2021, so you'll be able to make the most of your Blu-ray discs with this soundbar. When testing them side by side, I found very small differences in sound. Dialogue is slightly better and does seem like the speakers direct sound more precisely, but if you were to sell your Gen 1 and replace it with a Gen 2, I don't think you'll be able to notice a difference without having them next to each other. The biggest improvement is the fact that now the Gen 2 supports Dolby Digital Plus and Atmos formats, so you can make better use of the information your TV is sending. Since YouTube currently only supports 2-channel audio, there was no difference in sound quality, and the Dolby 5.1 from other streaming platforms like Netflix and Disney Plus sounded identical. I'd really only upgrade to the Gen 2 if you have an eARC enabled TV and you watch a lot of movies and shows that are Dolby Atmos enabled. You'd be better getting a pair of 1SLs for $200 each than the $150 to get the new Beam. If you don't have either soundbar, then another thing to consider is that a lot of people are putting their Gen 1s up on eBay, which could save you some money by buying secondhand. When compared to the ARC, the Beam isn't much of a competitor. It has a more narrow soundstage, and you don't get the same height effects that come from having dedicated upward firing drivers. I would say that if you're on a tighter budget and you can't afford the ARC, then the Beam will do just fine. I'd also think about pairing the Beam with the Sonos Sub. You'll get a better range of sound over the standalone ARC, as it transfers all the bass tones to the Sub, and the combination is only a few $100s more. The other way to go would be to get 2 Sonos Ones, so you can have actual surround sound, rather than relying on sound bouncing off walls and ceilings. Check out this video I did a couple months ago that goes into more detail about this. If you have a smaller room, say something around 12 square meters, and you like to watch dramas, news or sports, then the Beam would be the way to go. For those with a medium room around the 20 square meters mark, but still only watch dialogue heavy shows and movies, then the Beam will be fine, but as soon as you want to watch lots of action movies in a medium to large size room, then I'd suggest you spend the extra on the ARC. as the Beam just doesn't have the range of sound that type of content requires. So to sum up, the Gen 2 Sonos Beam adds some nice features over its predecessor and brings it up to 2021 soundbar standards. It's not a giant leap forward, but Sonos had already made a really great product in 2018, so they didn't need to change much to keep it relevant. With that, if this soundbar interests you, then check out this video next that outlines what you should think about before buying a Sonos speaker. Also, if you've enjoyed this video, then consider subscribing. That's all from me. See you guys soon.